The envoy ship drifted silently through the void, its metal hull catching faint glimmers of distant stars. Commander Elian Voss, the human negotiator, stood at the viewing deck, staring at the swirling colors of the alien planet below. It was a world unlike any other. Its sky shimmered in shades of violet and gold, while floating towers of crystal and obsidian rose like the spires of a city built by dreams. Elian's mind raced with anticipation and caution. This mission was meant to prevent war, a war that could consume both human and alien civilizations. And yet beneath the layers of strategy and protocol, a strange unease gnawed at him. Something about this place felt familiar, hauntingly so, but he could not place it. The palace loomed before him, a structure suspended above the surface on invisible platforms of light. Its surface shimmered, reflecting the nebulae that swirled in the sky like painted glass. Elian had studied the queen for months, the alien sovereign Elara, ruler of the Kylerians. Legends spoke of her power, her wisdom, and her merciless precision. But no one spoke of her heart, or the weight of the centuries she carried alone. The shuttle doors opened with a whisper. The air smelled faintly metallic, tinged with a strange, sweet scent that made Elian's pulse quicken. The hallways of the palace stretched into darkness, lined with towering crystals that pulsed with inner light. Shadows danced along the walls as he walked, his steps echoing softly. He could feel the presence of watchers, hidden among the columns, observing his every movement. At last, he entered the grand hall. The space was immense, a cathedral of alien design. The ceiling arched high, adorned with floating orbs that emitted soft luminescence, painting the hall in shades of silver and sapphire. And there, at the far end, sitting upon a throne carved of black crystal, was the queen. Elara's eyes were like liquid starlight, cold and mesmerizing. She moved with a grace that seemed impossible for one so powerful, her fingers tracing invisible patterns in the air as if weaving magic itself. Her gaze fell upon Elian, and for a moment the hall seemed to still. The guards stiffened. The crystals pulsed in rhythm with something unseen, and even the orbs above flickered in acknowledgement. Then, without warning, Elara froze. Elian felt it immediately, the sudden shift in energy. It was as if the air had thickened, the light dimmed, and the very heartbeat of the palace had faltered. His own pulse accelerated as he realized she was staring at him not with judgment or curiosity, but recognition. "You!" Her voice was a whisper, soft but carrying the weight of eternity. "I know your voice." Elara rose from her throne, every movement deliberate, every gesture both elegant and commanding. The crystal crown upon her head glimmered, reflecting shards of starlight across the hall. Yet even as she approached, there was uncertainty in her posture, a hesitation that no one had ever witnessed before. She paused, her hand trembling slightly, and her eyes searched his face as if looking for something she had lost long ago. The room was silent, save for the soft hum of energy flowing through the palace. Even the guards did not move, sensing the tension between them. Elian felt the pull too, the strange, magnetic force that seemed to draw him toward her, though caution urged him back. "I do not understand," he said carefully. "We come to negotiate peace." "If there is something from the past," he began, "we can face it together. I am here to talk, not to fight." And then she spoke. Star systems, fleets, and orbital paths danced across the light, detailing the precarious balance between human and Kylerian forces. Elian nodded, masking the turmoil inside him. The task was clear: negotiate, prevent war, protect lives. And yet beneath it all a more dangerous mission had begun, the uncovering of a shared past neither fully remembered, yet both instinctively feared. "I must warn you," Elara said, her voice steadying, regaining the queenly composure that had earned her loyalty and fear across the stars. "I do not easily forgive, I do not easily trust, and yet something in your voice," she trailed off, her gaze locking with his in a way that made the space between them crackle. Elian swallowed hard. "Then allow me to prove it. Let me show you we can prevent this war." Every crystal, every shadow, every flicker of light seemed to whisper secrets, urging him closer, warning him away. For the first time, Elian realized that this mission was no longer only about peace between worlds. It was about the fragile, dangerous connection between him and the Queen, their shared history that neither fully remembered, yet both felt to the core. The hall stretched endlessly before them, twisting corridors leading deeper into the heart of the palace. And though he tried to focus on diplomacy, the echo of her voice, her recognition, lingered in his mind, relentless and insistent. It was a call, a warning, and perhaps an invitation. Somewhere within the depths of that crystal fortress, a truth waited to be uncovered. A truth that could heal or destroy the fragile peace that hung between two worlds. And as the palace doors closed behind them with a resonant hum, Elian knew that nothing about this mission, or this queen, would ever be the same again. The stars above swirled, distant and indifferent, as the first threads of memory began to weave themselves into the present. The game had begun. The corridors of the palace stretched endlessly, their walls alive with the glow of shifting crystals. Each step Elian took echoed softly, a reminder of the immense silence that seemed to belong not just to the building, but to time itself. The further he went, the more he felt the weight of centuries pressing down on him, a reminder that he was a guest in a world that measured power differently, in lifetimes rather than hours. Ilara walked ahead, her presence both commanding and unnervingly fragile. The slight hesitation in her movements from earlier had vanished, replaced by the unmistakable air of a queen in control. And yet every now and then her gaze flickered back to him, betraying a recognition she could not fully hide. "I do not understand why your presence stirs memories," she said softly, her voice echoing slightly in the tall hallways. "It is as if you have always been here, and yet I cannot place when." A shadow, a whisper of something I cannot fully name, but it's strong, it feels personal. They entered a chamber that was quieter than the halls, a place that seemed reserved for reflection. Pools of liquid light stretched across the floor, reflecting constellations that did not exist in any human sky. It was beautiful, serene, and unsettling. Elian took a step toward one of the pools, his reflection shimmering in the strange liquid. The longer he looked, the more he felt a presence behind him, a weight pressing softly against his thoughts. He turned, but Ilara had not moved. "Why do I feel that we have shared more than this mission?" he asked quietly, almost to himself. That we knew each other before this moment. It was as if a door had been unlocked, revealing a memory that existed behind the curtain of his mind, but he could not yet see it clearly. "Tell me," he said, stepping closer. "If there is a past, show me. I need to understand." With a gesture, she activated it, and a vision began to unfold in midair. Images flickered, hazy and fragmented. A younger version of Ilara appeared, standing amidst strange fields of glowing flora. Beside her, a human figure moved with a familiarity that tugged at the corners of Elian's mind. He felt his chest tighten. The figure was him, or a version of him he could not fully recall. "You see," Ilara whispered, her voice trembling slightly, "this was before the divisions of our worlds, before war, before everything." It was love, fear, regret. Elian's hands clenched at his sides. I remember fragments," he admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "But not enough. It feels like something has been erased or hidden. They can burn, twist, and destroy. That is why we forget them. Perhaps it was mercy or perhaps a curse." "Then we find the truth," he said firmly, though his voice carried a tremor of uncertainty. "We cannot let it remain hidden. If this connection exists, it exists for a reason." Elian stepped closer, their reflections mingling in the liquid light beneath them. "Then we face it together," he replied. "I will not let fear dictate this. Not now, not when something this important lingers between us." Energy pulsed faintly beneath her touch, sending ripples across the floor. "Perhaps," she said, her voice barely audible, "we were meant to meet again in this time, in this place, to prevent something worse than the war itself." Their shared history, whatever it had been, was now intertwined with the fate of worlds. The sound of approaching footsteps reminded them of the ever-present danger. Ilara straightened, her queenly authority returning like a tide sweeping over fragile shores. The hall outside the chamber hummed with life as attendants and guards moved with precise coordination. The moment of vulnerability passed, leaving only the unspoken tension between them. Elian felt the pull of the memory again, faint but insistent, tugging at the edges of his consciousness. He knew this was only the beginning. The past was not done with them, and the present was already tangled with threads of something neither fully understood. Ilara turned to him once more, her eyes piercing. "Do not trust your instincts alone," she warned. "The connection we share, it is not simple. It can be a weapon, a prison, or a salvation. Choose wisely." And even more to remember. Elian could feel the weight of the mission pressing down upon him, yet even as he focused on diplomacy, his thoughts returned again and again to the Queen, to the recognition, to the fragments of memory that danced just beyond reach. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes. Time seemed fluid in this alien place. They stopped in a chamber that looked out over a river of liquid light flowing through the city. Elara gestured toward it, the colors reflecting in her eyes. "This river," she said softly, "is older than our histories. It has seen empires rise and fall, lives, bloom, and wither, and yet it endures. Perhaps that is the lesson for us." Perhaps, her voice trailed off and she looked at him, searching for something he could not name. Elian met her gaze. "Perhaps we endure as well," he said quietly. "If we remember, if we face the truth together." The energy of the city hummed around them, alive with secrets and power, yet in this quiet, suspended moment it was just the two of them. And then, without warning, the palace trembled. A pulse of energy rippled through the crystal walls, vibrating in resonance with something deep inside both of them. The queen froze, her eyes wide with alarm. "Elian," she whispered, almost in disbelief. "It begins." Whatever connection they shared, whatever history they could not fully remember, was stirring again, and it would not remain hidden for long. The echo of the past had arrived, and with it, the knowledge that their meeting was far more than chance. The mission for peace had become a journey into memory, power, and something far more dangerous, a connection that neither of them fully understood but both were powerless to ignore. And as the palace trembled, Elara's gaze met his. In that look was recognition, fear, and longing, the same mix of emotions that had lingered between them since the moment they first locked eyes. The journey into the past and into each other had begun. The palace tremor faded, leaving a silence heavier than before. Elian's heart still raced, his chest tight with anticipation and fear. Whatever had stirred within the palace, it had not been a mere mechanical fault or the hum of alien energy. He could feel it in the very air, something ancient and alive, recognizing them both, whispering secrets only their bond could hear. Elara's hands hovered over the crystal panel before her, fingers trembling slightly. Her gaze, usually sharp and commanding, now held something more vulnerable, an uncertainty that made Elian hesitate. The queen's power was legendary, but here in this moment he saw cracks that no one else had ever glimpsed. "It is not safe," she murmured. Her voice was low, almost a warning to herself rather than to him. "The bond it awakens, stronger than I expected." "Do you mean between us?" He had sensed the pull since their first encounter, the magnetic tug that made even the vastness of the palace feel intimate, dangerous, and inescapable. Now, hearing her acknowledge it, he realized that the connection was far deeper than a shared past. It was a force, alive and growing, shaping them both in ways neither fully understood. He reached out instinctively, not daring to touch her but letting his hand hover near hers. Energy pulsed between them, subtle but unmistakable, and it made him shiver. "This bond, it can help us," he said cautiously. "Or it can destroy us, but we cannot ignore it. We must understand it before it grows beyond our control." "You speak wisely," she said. "And yet wisdom is not always enough when power stirs. This palace, this city, it reacts to the bond as well. It is as if the very stones remember us, remember the connection that time tried to erase." They were no longer merely negotiator and queen. They were part of something older, larger, and dangerous. They moved together through the palace, guided by Elara's subtle gestures. The corridors twisted unnaturally, bending light and shadow in ways that defied reason. Crystal walls pulsed faintly with energy, reflecting not only the physical world but fragments of memory and emotion that lingered between them. In a secluded chamber, Elara stopped. The room was simple, yet its walls shimmered with liquid light that flowed like water. She turned to him, her expression guarded. "There is something you must see," she said. "Something from the past, something that explains the bond." They laughed, argued, and protected one another from dangers that now seemed fantastical. And then the memory twisted. Shadows fell across their faces, fear and betrayal creeping in. One of them, Elian, was forced to leave, torn away by events beyond his control. Elara reached for him, but the distance grew until the memory ended in darkness. Elian's hands clenched. "I remember fragments, but not the whole. What happened?" He had been trained for diplomacy, negotiation, and even combat, but nothing had prepared him for this revelation. The bond was not merely emotional, it was dangerous, a force that could tip the scales of war and perhaps even life itself. The air shimmered suddenly, a pulse of energy coursing through the chamber. Elian felt it first in his chest, a warmth that spread and then tightened, as if invisible hands were pulling at him. He stumbled slightly, and Elara's hand shot out instinctively. "Steady yourself," she whispered. Her fingers barely brushed his, and the effect was immediate. The pulse calmed, yet it left a tingling awareness in both of them, a reminder that their connection was alive, sentient, and demanding attention. "We must be careful," Ilara said, her voice steady now but her eyes wary. "The bond is awakening, but we do not fully understand it. If it grows unchecked, it could endanger everything, including us. No matter what comes." It was not painful, yet it demanded attention, drawing their minds closer, brushing against memories, emotions, and feelings that had been hidden or forgotten. "I can feel it," he murmured, awe in his voice. "It's alive. It belongs to something far older, far greater than either of us." Elian's mind drifted to the war waiting outside the palace, to the negotiations that had brought him here. And yet, in this moment, none of that seemed real. Nothing mattered but the pulse between them, the force that had drawn them together across time and memory. Suddenly, the palace shuddered again. The walls hummed, the crystals flickered, and shadows stretched unnaturally along the floors. Energy surged, reacting to the bond in ways neither of them could control. Elara's grip tightened slightly, and Elian felt a jolt of shared awareness, a warning, a signal, a premonition. "It responds to us," he said. "The palace, the energy, it's aware of the bond. And that means others will know as well, those who watch, who wait, who would use the bond against us. We are not alone." The pull between them was too strong, the promise of understanding, of shared history, too compelling to ignore. "Then we prepare," he said firmly. "Together, whatever comes, we face it side by side. And one day, we may not be able to control it." It was a fleeting thing, easily lost in the weight of her authority, yet it shone brighter than any crystal around them. And then, without warning, the chamber doors shuddered. A low hum filled the room, growing into a resonance that vibrated through their bones. The energy of the palace pulsed violently, responding not only to their presence but to the bond itself. Shadows stretched across the walls, twisting unnaturally, and a cold wind swept through the chamber, carrying whispers of voices long forgotten. "Elian," Ilara's voice was sharp now, urgent. "It is stronger than we thought. We cannot ignore it. We face it together." Nothing would ever be the same again. The palace corridors felt heavier than before, as if the very walls remembered the bond that had awakened between Elian and Ilara. Shadows clung to the crystal surfaces, flickering unnaturally, as if whispering secrets they were forbidden to speak aloud. Elian's steps echoed softly, but each echo carried a weight he could feel pressing against his chest, a reminder that danger was not only outside the palace but also creeping closer within. Ilara walked beside him, her movements precise, yet her eyes betrayed the strain she carried. She was the queen, the ruler of a civilization whose power spanned light years, but the bond had revealed something even she could not control. The energy pulsing between them was no longer subtle. It was alive, unpredictable, and aware. "Elian," she said quietly, her voice low and urgent. "We cannot show weakness, not here, not now. There are those who watch. Those who would use the bond against us if they knew its full power. If we are not careful, it will not only reveal our past, it may decide our future for us." Their eyes, sharp and wary, followed Elian's every move. The Kailirian court had always been loyal to Ilara, yet the subtle unease in their gazes told him that the queen's behavior, her hesitation, had not gone unnoticed. "Elian," Ilara said softly, guiding him forward. "We must show unity, confidence. If the bond is sensed, we cannot let them think we are weak or distracted." Their connection pulsed faintly beneath the surface, a rhythm only they could feel, as if their hearts were already in sync with a melody long forgotten. The council began. Discussions of fleets, territorial boundaries, and diplomatic negotiations filled the chamber. Elian listened carefully, noting both the subtle tensions and outright hostilities hidden beneath polite words. He could sense the undercurrent of fear, the same fear that had guided Ilara to act so cautiously in their earlier encounters. And yet, as he observed, he realized something else. The bond was influencing her, subtly but undeniably. She was more attentive, more aware, and yet more human than any ruler he had ever known. The icy composure that had protected her for centuries had softened, revealing glimpses of vulnerability, longing, and even trust directed entirely at him. During a particularly tense discussion about a disputed territory near the outer rim of Kailirian space, one of the advisors spoke sharply. "The human presence cannot be trusted. We must act before they manipulate the Queen's decisions." It was a silent message. Be steady, be careful, and be ready. "I will not act in haste," Ilara said, her voice steady, commanding. We consider all factors carefully. Rash action will serve no one. The bond had helped them navigate this moment, yet it had also made their connection visible, even if only subtly, to those who knew how to look. After the council, Elara led him to a private chamber overlooking the city. The flowing rivers of energy below shimmered like liquid stars, casting soft reflections on their faces. "They are watching us," she said quietly, almost to herself. "And soon they may try to exploit the bond. We are no longer alone in this." For a moment, the queen and the negotiator were not ruler and envoy, but two beings bound by something far older, far deeper than politics or duty. And then, as if the palace itself had answered their resolve, the air shimmered. A pulse of energy flowed through the chamber, tingling against their skin. It was not threatening, yet, but it was a reminder that the bond was alive, growing stronger, and aware of their intentions. "We must understand it," Elara said, "before it decides to act without us." It was intoxicating, thrilling, and frightening all at once. Suddenly, an alarm sounded faintly in the distance. Guards rushed past the chamber doors, their movements urgent. Elian's pulse quickened. "What is happening?" he asked, looking to Elara. "They are testing us," she replied, her voice sharp now. "Someone in the court has realized the bond is stronger than it should be. They are plotting already. To fully understand it, we may have to risk exposure. We may have to confront the forces that tried to separate us centuries ago." Side by side. For the first time, they both felt the full weight of it, not just as a connection, but as a force capable of shaping events far beyond themselves. Elian took a deep breath. "Then we begin." They stepped forward together, hands brushing occasionally, each pulse of energy between them reinforcing their connection. The palace seemed to recognize their resolve. Shadows receded slightly, crystals pulsed with steady light, and the rivers of energy below shimmered more brightly than before. Yet even as they prepared, Elian could not shake the sense that danger was coming, not just from the court, not just from enemies outside the palace, but from forces tied to the bond itself. Elara led him to a secluded chamber designed for training and meditation. Here, she explained, they would learn to navigate the bond, to sense its movements, and to control the energy that connected them. "You must focus," she instructed. "Do not fear it, do not resist it. It is a part of us, a part of our shared history, but it will test you. It will show you truths you are not ready to see. Whatever it reveals, whatever it asks of me, I will not turn away." And she glimpsed his courage, his doubts, and a fierce determination that had carried him across stars. The power of the bond was intoxicating, but also dangerous. Both knew that each step deeper could reveal truths that neither might be prepared to bear. And as the chamber lights pulsed in harmony with the energy between them, Elian realized something profound. The mission for peace had become secondary. The true journey was here, into the bond, into their shared past, and into a connection that could change the fate of worlds. And then a distant sound echoed through the palace, a ripple, a warning, a threat. Someone was coming. Elian's hand tightened around hers. "They are coming," he said, voice firm. "Whatever happens, we face it together."